My wife thought I was the fool who'd never leave until I walked out, took the deeds, took the accounts, took the power, and watched her world collapse in silence. She asked me to pick up milk, like always. But when I opened the fridge, her suitcase was gone, and so was half our savings. I used to think that love could survive anything. Back when Vanessa and I were scraping by on little more than hope and hustle, I believed in the strength of commitment. When the heater broke during a Connecticut winter, we bundled up together under one blanket and laughed at our own shivering. When our first apartment leaked every time it rained, I balanced pans under the drips while she sang off-key to cheer us both up. Back then, I thought those were the trials that forged steel between two people. I never imagined that years later, it would be silence, disdain, and mockery that would tear us apart thread by thread. Tonight, she and her sister are in the living room, their laughter rising above the hum of the television. Vanessa used to laugh with me that way. Now the sound grates, sharp as glass, because it's laced with something I recognize all too well: superiority. I take a sip of my coffee, bitter and lukewarm, and push it aside. The cup itself has a hairline crack down one side, and for some reason, I can't stop staring at it. It feels like a metaphor too obvious to ignore. Vanessa once told me, "We're a team," when I'd missed her birthday working a double shift. I clung to that sentence for years. It became the mantra I repeated when my shoulders felt heavy with the weight of bills, when she wanted the newest SUV and I stretched my income to make it happen, when she asked for dinners out that I couldn't afford but found a way to cover anyway. I reminded myself, we're a team. But a team implies equal effort, equal respect. Now it feels like I've been the only one breaking a sweat while she cheers from the sidelines, mocking my pace. The house looks like success from the outside. 2 stories, gray siding, a neatly trimmed yard with hydrangeas. Vanessa insisted on planting last spring. Inside, though, it feels like a museum of disappointments. The stainless steel fridge covered in magnets from trips she took with her sister but never with me. The leather sectional where I sit alone while they gossip. The faint smell of her designer candles that cost more than my weekly groceries. I listen as Sabrina's voice carries through the walls. "Vanessa, you deserve more excitement. Ethan is nice, but he's just predictable." The two of them burst into laughter again. I grip the edge of the table until my knuckles pale. Predictable. That word hangs over me like a curse. They don't mean steady. They don't mean reliable. They mean boring, disposable. I stand and walk to the sink, rinsing out my cup. I hear Vanessa's voice rise. "At least predictable pays the mortgage." More laughter. I close my eyes, water running over my hands, and remind myself not to slam the cup down hard enough to shatter it. For years I told myself she was tired, stressed, maybe just overwhelmed. But deep down, I know better. Her dismissiveness isn't a phase. It's who she has become. She thrives on attention, on performance, and I have been cast as the straight man in her comedy, the quiet husband who makes her look more dazzling by comparison. Later that evening, we sit down to dinner. I made grilled chicken and roasted vegetables, because cooking has always been my small way of caring for us. Vanessa pushes the food around her plate with the tip of her fork. Sabrina smirks, swirling wine in her glass. "So, Ethan," Sabrina begins, "do you ever get tired of, your routine?" I raise an eyebrow. "My routine?" Fixing faucets, paying bills, eating the same dinners. Don't you ever want to, live a little?" Vanessa bursts out laughing, shaking her head as if the idea is absurd. "Sabrina, this is him living a little." The laughter slices through me, sharper than any blade. I try to mask the sting, offering a weak smile, but inside something splinters. I remember when my efforts meant something to her, when tightening a leaking pipe was proof of love, not proof of boredom. When making her favorite coffee in the morning was met with a kiss, not indifference. I chew slowly, tasting bitterness more than flavor. Sabrina keeps the jokes going, each one landing harder than the last, but I barely hear them. My ears ring with silence inside my own head, and I find myself studying Vanessa's face as if she's become a stranger across from me. After dinner, I step outside onto the porch with a Sam Adams in my hand. The night air is cooler, the neighborhood quiet except for the hum of a distant lawnmower. I sit on the steps, staring at the headlights of cars passing on Willow Creek Drive. From here, our house looks picture perfect. You'd never guess the rot setting in behind its walls. I think about how we ended up here, about how every paycheck I earned, every overtime hour I logged, Every penny I saved went into this place, into her comfort. And how somewhere along the way, I stopped being her partner and became her background character. I leaned back against the railing, the beer warm in my hand, and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. In that moment, I know something I've tried to avoid admitting for years. Vanessa doesn't see me as her balance anymore. She sees me as her ballast, the dead weight keeping her from flying as high as she wants. The sliding door opens behind me. Vanessa leans out, wineglass in hand, her silhouette framed by the kitchen light. "Don't stay out too late," she says, not with care, but with impatience, like I'm a child who might catch cold. Then, she slides the door shut again, returning to Sabrina's laughter. I stare out at the street, the glow of street lamps reflecting off the hood of my Ford pickup. I think about every sacrifice I've made, every slight I've swallowed, and the way she laughed at me tonight, like I was nothing more than a joke in her performance. I laughed with them that night, but in the silence that followed, something inside me went cold. The summer sun burns hot over Willow Creek as I walk into Vanessa's family barbecue, already feeling like an unwelcome guest in my own life. By the time I reach the backyard gate, the heat has already pressed sweat down my spine. I wipe my palms on my jeans, but it's not the weather making me clammy. It's the gnawing sense that I don't belong here anymore. There was a time when these gatherings felt like family, when her parents welcomed me with open arms and her cousins treated me like a brother. Now, each time I step into their space, I feel more like a tolerated visitor, someone they'd rather forget was married into their clan. Vanessa used to slip her hand into mine at events like this. I can still remember the squeeze of reassurance she gave me when I stumbled through my first Thanksgiving toast in front of her relatives. It was a small thing, but it made me feel like I was part of something, like she and I were against the world together. Today, her hands are occupied with a wineglass and her phone. If she even notices me arriving, she doesn't show it. The yard is buzzing. Mr. Holt, her father, stands behind the grill in his wide-brimmed hat, flipping bratwursts with a spatula like a general commanding troops. Her mother floats between tables draped with checkered cloths, pearls glinting in the sunlight, arranging bowls of potato salad and trays of deviled eggs. Children shriek from the inflatable pool set up by the hedges. Aunts and uncles perch in folding chairs under umbrellas, sipping rosé and laughing too loudly. I pause near the cooler by the gate and pull out a can of soda. It's aluminum slick with condensation. I pop it open and take a sip, letting the fizz sting my throat. It gives me something to hold, something to focus on, as I scan the scene. Vanessa is already in hostess mode. She stands near the patio, wearing a red sundress that hugs her curves, her hair falling in waves around her shoulders. She tilts her head toward her mother, smiling wide, lips glistening with fresh gloss. Her eyes flick across the yard, pass over me without recognition, and land elsewhere. I may as well be invisible. I take a seat at a picnic table near the grill, hoping to blend into the background. For a few minutes, it almost works. I nod at a cousin I barely know, who nods back with all the warmth of a stranger on a subway. Conversations rise and fall around me, gossip about promotions, vacations, summer camps for the kids. Not one of them includes me. Then, like a switch being flipped, Sabrina Holt's voice cuts through the chatter. "Hey, Ethan," she calls, perched on the edge of a table with her wineglass dangling from her fingers. Her oversized sunglasses cover half her face, but I can feel the smirk underneath them. "Don't sit so far away. Come join us. We won't bite." A ripple of laughter follows. I swallow hard, lift my soda in a mock toast and move closer. My chair scrapes against the grass as I sit opposite her. She leans in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Don't worry," she says, her breath heavy with Chardonnay. "I won't let them forget who you are." She takes a theatrical bite of ribs, sauce glistening on her fingers, and laughs like she's told the funniest joke in the world. The table erupts again. I hear chuckles from uncles, a high-pitched giggle from a cousin, even a snort from one of the women at the end of the bench. My chest tightens, but I force my face into stillness. "Everything smells great," I say, raising my voice just enough to be polite. My words are drowned out by the laughter rolling across the yard. It feels like thunder pressing down on me, relentless and suffocating. Sabrina isn't finished. She taps her fork against her plate, waiting for the laughter to subside. Then she cocks her head and asks, loud enough for everyone to hear, "So tell me, Ethan, if Vanessa ever cheats on you, are you going to cry?" The words hang in the air like a slap. I feel every eye shift toward me. My throat tightens. My grip on the soda can stiffens until the metal creaks. A cousin pipes up before I can respond. "She probably already did," he shouts, sending another wave of laughter crashing around me. And then, the final blow. Vanessa, sitting pretty in her sundress, takes a slow sip of wine, eyes gleaming with mischief. She sets the glass down, smirks at her sister, and says, "It's not like he lasts in bed anyway." For a second, I don't breathe. Her words cut cleaner than any knife. I see her father glance over, amusement tugging at the corners of his mouth. Her mother looks down at her plate, unwilling to intervene. The laughter explodes again, louder than before, children even pausing their play to glance over at the commotion. I don't laugh. I don't even flinch. Instead, I raise my soda cans slowly, deliberately, like I'm toasting them all. My voice is calm, steady, carrying over the roar of their amusement. Message received. Once. And no when I'll tend. For a heartbeat, silence falls. Sabrina's grin falters, Vanessa's smirk flickers, and even her father freezes mid-flip over the grill. The quiet lasts just long enough for me to see recognition in their eyes. They know I heard. I understood. And I will never forget. Then the noise resumes, as if nothing happened. Plates clatter, conversations shift, the laughter turns to new subjects. The party carries on, but I don't I push back from the table, the folding chair screeching against the grass. My legs feel heavy as I walk toward the gate, past the inflatable pool where children splash, past the shaded tables where neighbors sip their wine. I keep my eyes fixed on the gate latch, refusing to glance back. The breeze shifts, carrying the scent of charcoal and grilled meat, but it no longer feels like summer. It feels like smoke after a fire, cloying and thick. Each step I take feels like a nail in the coffin of the man I used to be. As I reach the gate, I pause, my hand resting on the latch. Behind me, the noise continues. Laughter, chatter, the hiss of meat searing on the grill. Not one of them notices I'm leaving. Not one of them cares. She thought it was a victory. She had no idea the war was just beginning. Before dawn, I sit in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator while staring at packed duffel bags by the back door. The house is silent, except for the steady tick of the clock on the wall. Willow Creek sleeps outside, the cul-de-sac lamps casting soft halos on empty driveways, sprinklers just beginning to hiss in nearby yards. This house, the one I once thought of as our forever home, feels more like a museum now full of echoes, stripped of warmth. My bags, 2 worn duffels, sit like exclamation points at the end of a sentence I've been writing for years. I think back to all the small cuts that led me here, the sighs that slipped from Vanessa's lips whenever I asked about her day, the way her hand recoiled when I reached for her during a movie night, the smirks exchanged between her and Sabrina, like I was the punchline of a joke told in a language I could never learn. None of it came in a storm. It came in stillness. That was the cruelest part. I wasn't broken in one clean moment. I was chipped away, piece by piece, until I barely recognized the man staring back at me in the bathroom mirror. I whisper into the silence, my voice steady and low. No storm broke me. The stillness did. I cross the kitchen and pull a sticky note from the drawer. The pen feels heavy in my hand. 3 words are all I write. Message received. I place it next to an envelope divorce papers I signed months ago, tucked away until the moment was right. Now, they sit there like a verdict, cold and final, waiting for her to find them when she comes downstairs. I glance around at the kitchen one last time, the marble counters she fought for during renovations, the stainless steel fridge plastered with photos of vacations she took with her sister, the faint scent of her lavender candles. All of it feels foreign, like someone else's life I accidentally wandered into. I move quietly through the hallway, careful not to wake her. The bedroom door is closed, and I know behind it she's curled in our king-sized bed, resting easy after a night of laughter at my expense. Sabrina's perfume still lingers faintly in the air, a reminder that this house stopped being mine long ago. I slip on my jacket, hoist one duffel over my shoulder, and carry the other in my hand. The weight doesn't bother me. After all these years of carrying invisible burdens, the tangible load feels almost light. I step into the garage, press the button to raise the door, and the cool pre-dawn air rushes in. My Ford pickup waits, its engine already loaded with memories of commutes, errands, and late-night drives, just to get out of the house when the silence became unbearable. I slide the bags into the back seat and climb behind the wheel. For a moment, I just sit there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the faint glow of the microwave clock through the kitchen window. 5:13 in the morning. Perfect. No one will notice I'm gone until the sun is high. I turn the key, and the engine rumbles to life. The sound seems louder than usual, intrusive, almost accusatory. I wait, half expecting a light to flick on inside, half expecting Vanessa to storm out demanding an explanation. Nothing happens. The house stays dark, still. I back down the driveway slowly, tires crunching against gravel, and take one last look at the facade. Hydrangeas line the front walk, their blooms pale in the moonlight. The welcome mat is slightly crooked, worn down from years of footsteps. I remember the night we stood there, soaked from the rain, promising each other forever. Now the word feels like ash in my mouth. I pull onto the empty road. Willow Creek passes by in silence, the identical houses, the manicured lawns, the mailboxes standing like sentinels. I drive past the corner where I once taught Vanessa to parallel park, past the little cafe where she ordered almond milk lattes while I sipped plain black coffee, past the church where we stood exchanging vows we both broke in different ways. Each landmark feels like a gravestone marking the death of something I once believed eternal. The highway stretches ahead, dark and endless. I roll the window down and let the cold wind hit my face. It feels like baptism, cleansing me of years of humiliation. I don't cry. I don't even shake. I just drive. The radio spits static, so I turn it off. Silence has been my companion for so long, I don't mind it now. After a few hours, the skyline shrinks in my rearview mirror, replaced by trees and open stretches of road. I pull into a rest stop, buy a stale cup of coffee from a vending machine, and check the prepaid phone I bought weeks ago. No notifications, no messages. Perfect. The alias I created months ago, the one tied to the cabin rental, is still intact. Every step planned, every detail accounted for. By mid-morning, I turn onto a narrow gravel path hidden between two tall pines. The road winds deeper into the woods until it reveals a small cabin, weathered but sturdy, smoke curling faintly from the chimney as if it's been waiting for me. Glenn, the owner, promised discretion when I wired him cash through an anonymous account. He delivered. I park the truck, kill the engine, and listen. No traffic, no laughter, no smirks cutting through the air, just wind in the branches and the distant cry of a hawk. For the first time in years, I feel the tension in my shoulders loosen. The cabin smells of pine and wood smoke. The floor creaks beneath my boots as I step inside. There's a battered armchair beside the stone hearth, a small kitchen with mismatched mugs, and a wooden table scarred by knife marks and water stains. It isn't much, but it's mine at least for now. I set my bags down, stoke the fire, and watch the flames crackle to life. I sink into the chair and let the warmth wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I feel steady. Not because Vanessa is by my side, not because I've managed to hold our fragile life together another day, but because I chose this. I chose to walk away. The irony isn't lost on me. Vanessa and her family laughed at me like I was powerless, like I was nothing but the dependable fool holding her life together while she basked in their admiration. What they never realized is that all those years of being the quiet one, the predictable one, gave me a kind of strength they never saw coming. While they mocked, I prepared. While they dismissed, I endured. And endurance, I've learned, is its own kind of power. Night falls fast in the woods. I boil water on a small hot plate, pour it into a chipped mug, and sip slowly. Outside, crickets chirp, and the moon casts pale light through the window. My hands no longer tremble. My chest no longer feels hollow. I stare into the fire, its glow painting the cabin walls in shades of orange and gold. This isn't the end. It's the prologue to something else, something colder, something sharper. I lean forward, elbows on my knees, and speak into the flames, my voice low but firm. This is the beginning. Months after disappearing, I scroll through my private email account at the cabin and find dozens of desperate messages from Vanessa, accusations, anger, then finally apologies. It's late at night. The fire in the hearth has burned down to embers, the room glowing with faint orange light. My laptop screen casts a harsher glow across the table, the inbox filled with her name again and again. 62 unread messages. The subject lines alone tell a story. Where are you, coward? How could you leave me like this? Please talk to me. I'm sorry. I click the oldest one first. Left your socks under the bed again. Had to wash them myself. The words are light, even teasing, but I hear the edge beneath them. She thought I was sulking. She thought I'd come crawling back after a few days to prove my loyalty again. The next message is different. You're a coward. You broke every promise. I imagine her typing it furiously. Red wine glass balanced on the edge of the counter. Sabrina egging her on. I scroll further. The tone shifts over the weeks. From rage to bargaining. Please respond. I need to explain. Then finally, I'm sorry. Bianca went too far. I never should have stayed silent. I never should have let them laugh at you like that. I sit back in the chair, rubbing my eyes. My chest tightens, not with longing, but with the bitter memory of her smirk that day at the barbecue. I hear it as clearly as if she were in the room with me. It's not like he lasts in bed anyway. The anger that surges now isn't wild. It's cold, sharpened like steel. For the first time, I realize I no longer feel trapped. I feel prepared. I close the laptop and head outside into the night. The woods are silent except for the rustle of leaves in the breeze. I look up at the moon and let the cool air clear my head. I've been hiding long enough, surviving long enough. Now it's time to plan. 2 days later, I drive into town to meet Richard Hayes. The diner sits off Main Street, wedged between a hardware store and a bank. It's one of those old places with red vinyl booths and chrome trim, the kind of spot where the waitress knows every customer by name. I slide into a booth in the corner, facing the door. The smell of bacon grease and fresh coffee fills the air. Richard walks in 10 minutes later, still carrying himself like he owns every room he enters. His hair is flecked with gray now, but his eyes are sharp as ever. We shake hands, and for the first time in months, I feel the weight of someone else's grip grounding me. You look good, he says, sliding into the booth. Better than I expected. I'm alive, I answer. That's enough for now. The waitress comes by. I order black coffee. Richard asks for eggs over rye and a side of hash browns. As she walks away, he leans forward. I heard whispers. Vanessa's drowning, isn't she? I nod. She can't manage the finances. I always handled the accounts, the mortgage, the insurance, the contractors. She never paid attention. Now it's unraveling. Richard smirks. She thought you were predictable. Turns out predictable built the scaffolding of her entire life. I slide a folder across the table. Inside are copies of the prenup she signed, property deeds with my name at the top, bank statements showing the accounts I'd moved quietly into secure holdings. He flips through them, his expression tightening with each page. This is gold, he says finally. You've been preparing for this, whether you admitted it to yourself or not. I sip my coffee, the bitterness steadying me. They laughed at me in front of everyone. They thought I'd take it, that I'd keep carrying them no matter what. He won of that. And now? Richard asks. Now, I say, leaning forward. I want to take everything they think they can't lose. The waitress sets his plate down, steam rising from the eggs. He doesn't touch them. He looks at me, eyes gleaming. Ethan, when you're ready, we'll bury them in their own arrogance. The words settle deep inside me like an oath. For years I endured, swallowing every slight, every smirk, every dismissal, but endurance has turned into resolve. I picture Vanessa pacing the kitchen, Sabrina lounging on the couch, both of them confident that I was just the dependable fool who couldn't live without them. They still believe the foundation under their feet is solid. They don't know I've already pulled the support beams away. I glance out the diner window. Willow Creek looks the same as it always has: children riding bikes, neighbors tending their lawns, the town gossiping over fences. But beneath the surface, a storm is coming, and this time, I'm not the one bracing against it. I'm the one bringing it. I close the folder, my decision sealed. I wasn't just leaving her behind. I was going to take everything she thought she owned. Vanessa stands at a Willow Creek charity gala, dressed in designer heels, smiling for cameras, unaware the foundation of her world is about to collapse. The ballroom glitters under chandeliers that drip with crystal. Soft jazz hums from the band in the corner, and the air smells of champagne and perfume. I step through the wide oak doors with Richard beside me, the hum of conversations faltering for a fraction of a second when people notice me. For months, they thought I was gone, vanished, irrelevant, a man too weak to face his own humiliation. Tonight, I am back, and I carry silence like a weapon. It feels strange being here again. This country club used to be the shrine of Vanessa's ambitions. She begged me for the membership, insisting it would elevate our social standing. I paid the dues, wrote the checks, wore the tuxedo she picked out, but I never fit in. She thrived on it, the attention, the gossip, the endless toasts to nothing. Tonight, I walk in not as her accessory, but as her reckoning. I spot her near the stage, red lips flashing as she leans in for a photo with Sabrina. She looks radiant under the lights, wearing the kind of gown people buy on credit just to prove a point. Sabrina hovers by her side like a shadow, clutching a glass of champagne, her laughter loud enough to draw glances. They look untouchable, but I know the cracks beneath the polish. Richard leans closer, murmuring, "Ready?" "More than ready," I reply. The master of ceremonies is droning about the charity's latest numbers when Richard steps forward and clears his throat into the microphone. The chatter fades. Heads turn. Vanessa freezes, her smile stiffening when she sees him on stage. She didn't expect him here, and when I step up beside him, the color drains from her face. "Good evening," Richard begins smoothly, holding up a folder. "Tonight, while we honor generosity, it's only fitting we also talk about truth. Truth about who funds what, who owns what, and who's been living off lies." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. I keep my eyes on Vanessa. Her lips press into a thin line, her hand tightening around Sabrina's arm. Richard flips open the folder and holds up a sheaf of documents. These are legal declarations regarding the Caldwell estate, the family business accounts, and the properties you've all seen showcased as part of their so-called legacy. What you may not know is that none of it was managed by Vanessa Caldwell. Every bill paid, every mortgage signed, every tax covered, all handled by Ethan Caldwell, the man she and her family mocked and dismissed. Gasps scatter across the room. I step to the microphone. My voice is calm, deliberate, cutting through the noise. For years, I was called predictable, boring, disposable. They laughed at me at their barbecues, mocked me in their living rooms, and told me I'd never be enough. But the truth is, while they were laughing, I was building. While they were mocking, I was documenting. And while they were humiliating me in public, I was preparing for tonight. The silence is heavy now. I can feel the weight of every gaze fixed on me. Vanessa's eyes are wide, pleading silently for me to stop, but I don't rate her. Richard lifts another set of papers. The prenup Vanessa signed gives Ethan sole control over assets acquired during the marriage. She defaulted on credit cards. She neglected the mortgage. She leveraged family business funds without oversight, and thanks to her arrogance, every misstep is now public record. Sabrina tries to interrupt, her voice shrill. "This is ridiculous. He abandoned her. The microphone squeals with feedback as Richard lowers it, silencing her. "You'll have your turn, Miss Holt, though I suspect no one here wants to hear it." Laughter ripples cruelly through the crowd, this time not at me, but at them. I step forward again, eyes never leaving Vanessa. "You thought I'd take it forever. You thought you could strip me of dignity in front of your family, in front of strangers, and I'd just smile and keep paying your bills. But tonight, you get to feel what I felt: exposed, mocked, powerless." A wine glass slips from Vanessa's hand, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoes like a gunshot. She stares at me, face pale, lips trembling. Sabrina hisses in her ear, but the crowd is already shifting, their whispers sharp as knives. People who once smiled at Vanessa are now leaning away, unwilling to be associated with her collapse. Richard reads the final declaration, his voice smooth as stone. "Effective immediately. The Caldwell estate, vehicles, and accounts fall under Ethan Caldwell's name. Vanessa Caldwell retains nothing. She is, legally and financially, stripped of what she once flaunted." The room buzzes with shock. Vanessa clutches at her necklace as if it might hold her upright. Her father, standing near the bar, lowers his glass with shaking hands. For the first time, he looks at me, not with disdain, but with fear. I let the silence stretch. Then I lean toward the microphone one last time. My voice is steady, merciless. "You mocked me in front of everyone. Tonight I return the favor. It is Seden Haim." The next morning, Vanessa sits in her empty kitchen, eviction papers on the counter, Sabrina gone, reputation in ruins. I know this because word travels fast in Willow Creek. Even up here in my cabin, the whispers reach me. The same neighbors who once smirked at me over barbecue grills now pass gossip like currency. They talk about how the Lexus was repossessed, how the foreclosure notice hung on the front door like a scarlet letter, how Sabrina packed up overnight and vanished without a trace once the credit dried up. I picture Vanessa at that kitchen island, where she used to sip almond milk lattes and criticize me for drinking mine black. Now the only thing in front of her is a stack of overdue bills and the silence of a phone that doesn't ring anymore. Friends she once entertained at wine tastings no longer return her calls. The invitations dried up the moment the truth surfaced. Respect in Willow Creek is a fragile thing. Once cracked, it shatters. For years, I was the one who managed the scaffolding of her life, the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes, the quiet payments that kept her parents' leaky roof patched and her credit cards out of default. Without me, the whole edifice crumbled faster than even I expected. She believed I was ballast holding her down. In truth, I was the foundation she built her illusion on. Remove the foundation, and the house falls. I returned to Willow Creek one final time, not to gloat but to close the circle. Richard meets me at the courthouse steps. The sky is gray, heavy with the threat of rain, the kind that hangs like judgment. He hands me the last set of documents to sign, his face calm, professional, but with the faintest trace of satisfaction in his eyes. "She's inside," he says quietly. I nod, taking the pen. My signature scrawls across the page, severing the last legal tie between us. When I hand it back, Richard claps a hand on my shoulder. "It's done. You're free." As we step out, I see her. Vanessa stands near the courthouse doors, her once pristine dress wrinkled, makeup smeared from tears. She looks smaller than I remember, her shoulders hunched, her eyes hollow. For a moment, our gazes lock, and I see not the arrogant woman who mocked me but a ghost of who she once was. She takes a step forward, lips trembling. "Ethan?" But I don't wait for whatever plea or apology might follow. I've heard enough words from her to last a lifetime, words that once promised forever, words that later cut me down, words that mocked and dismissed. None of them matter anymore. I turn away, leaving her standing there in the drizzle, clutching nothing but regret. Driving out of Willow Creek feels different this time. The hydrangeas she planted by our front walk are wilted now, untended. The once perfect lawn is overgrown, the mailbox tilting on its post. I pass the gate of the country club, where laughter once echoed at my expense, and all I feel is distance, as though it belongs to another life. By the time I reach the woods, the rain has begun in earnest, pattering against the windshield in steady rhythm. I park by the cabin, step out into the damp earth, and breathe deep. The air here smells of pine and rain, not of smoke and judgment. Inside, I set a pot of stew to simmer on the wood stove, the scent of garlic and thyme filling the small space. I sit at the table, journal open, pen in hand. For the first time in years, I write not to make sense of chaos, but to preserve peace. Respect is the one thing you never get back once it's lost. She learned that too late. I close the journal and lean back, watching the fire crackle in the hearth. The flames dance across the logs, consuming them slowly, reducing them to ash. Ashes are all that remain of promises broken, of arrogance unchecked, of a marriage that decayed in silence. Through the window, the forest stretches endless and still. I realize I am no longer waiting for anyone's approval, no longer bracing for the next insult or dismissal. The silence that once felt suffocating now feels like freedom. In Willow Creek, Vanessa is alone, facing the wreckage she created. Sabrina has disappeared, her parasitic laughter gone with her. Her parents, stripped of the facade of wealth and respectability, scramble to cover their own debts. The empire they thought unshakable has crumbled to dust, and me? I sit here with a pot of stew, a stack of firewood, and a piece they will never touch again. I think of that night at the gala, the way the crowd gasped when Richard read the documents, the way Vanessa's glass shattered on the marble floor. I think of the silence that followed, heavy and absolute, when they realized the man they mocked was the man who held all the cards. That silence has followed me here, but now it is not the silence of death. It is the silence of victory. I add another log to the fire, watching sparks leap upward. The crackle fills the room, steady and warm. I closed my journal, leaned back in my chair, and smiled at the silence. For the first time in years, the story was finally mine. When I look back now, I see not just the end of a marriage, but the beginning of something deeper, the rediscovery of myself. For years, I convinced myself that endurance was strength, that patience was loyalty, that love could survive even when respect was gone. I believed that if I carried enough of the weight, we would both reach the finish line together. But the truth is, you cannot carry someone who insists on mocking the ground you walk on. You cannot save a bond that has been poisoned by disrespect. Every smirk, every dismissive comment, every public humiliation chipped away at the man I used to be. And still, I stayed. I told myself that to leave would be failure, that to walk away would betray the vows I had spoken. But I learned, painfully and irrevocably, that the real betrayal is to yourself, when you allow someone to convince you that you are worth less than you are. It wasn't one act that broke me. It wasn't the laughter at the barbecue or the cruel words spoken in front of family and friends. It was the slow erosion, the silence that turned love into apathy, the disdain that replaced tenderness. And yet, in that stillness, I finally found clarity. I realized that survival without dignity is not living at all. Walking away was not weakness. It was the moment I claimed my worth back. It was the moment I remembered that a man who respects himself will never beg for scraps of affection, will never kneel for someone who uses him as the punchline to their jokes. And when I left, when I finally allowed myself to vanish from her stage, I discovered something I had almost forgotten: peace. And when I returned, not to plead, not to reconcile, but to reveal the truth, I understood the power of silence turned into strategy. They laughed at me because they mistook patience for weakness. They underestimated me because they thought humility meant ignorance. But humility is not blindness. Patience is not surrender. In the end, my quiet endurance became my sharpest weapon. And when the reckoning came, I did not raise my voice. I raised the truth. That was enough to bring their empire down. Some people think revenge is fire and fury, a dramatic spectacle that consumes everything in sight. But my revenge was simpler. It was reclaiming what was mine, dismantling the illusion they lived on, and showing them that the man they mocked was the man they depended on all along. Their downfall was not my triumph alone. It was the natural consequence of their arrogance. The lesson I carry with me is one I hope you never have to learn the hard way. Self-respect is priceless. Once you give it away, once you let someone trample it, you may never get it back. Love without respect is a hollow shell. Patience without recognition is slavery. The courage to walk away is the only cure when someone shows you, again and again, that they will not honor who you are. And the truth, unrelenting and sharp, is that some actions have permanent consequences. The philosophy remains: disrespect is not just a slight, it is a warning. If ignored, it will consume everything: trust, intimacy, partnership, even family. But when faced, when answered with quiet strength and decisive action, it becomes the soil where dignity grows back, stronger than before. To those who've walked a similar path, share your thoughts in the comments. Your story, your strength, may give another person the courage to stand tall. And if this story touched you, if you felt the sting of betrayal and the triumph of rebuilding, leave the word "rebuilt" below, as a mark of connection, proof that we are not alone in this fight for respect. And if you want more stories like this, stories where truth matters, where justice finds its way, where underestimated men and women rise from the ashes, subscribe to our channel. Because in the end, what we share here is not just entertainment. It is a reminder. No one has the right to laugh at your worth. And when you finally stand up for yourself, when you choose dignity over humiliation, you win the only victory that matters.